So today I am joined by Nias, former CTO of Azra, founder of Piramidz, and we're going to be talking about what really takes to scale healthcare technology responsibly. Tell me a little bit more about what were the problems that you saw that make you think somebody needs to build this and that led you to start Piramidz.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. While I was working for private equity and startups, I used to get a lot of calls from my previous colleagues with these issues, right? There was a real gap. Everybody wants to innovate. They get stuck in compliance, legacy systems, and fragmented vendors. They all have ideas. They all have great data. They have urgency, but they're not able to make progress because of this competition between compliance and innovation. I didn't want to see it as a competition. I wanted to see it as a collaboration. So my mission is to help healthcare companies modernize safely, adopt AI responsibility, and build architectures that scale without introducing security or compliances. That's key because when you go into innovation, if you create some technical debt and security risk, that's going to come and bite you later. So combining the deep expertise from the fields, bringing together some of my previous colleagues, then putting together a cloud and AI strategy, understanding the regulatory outcomes, going into these companies and shaping their vision, helping them with their strategy, helping them with their architecture, and then bringing in my partners for execution. So at Pyramids, our goal is very simple: make healthcare systems faster, safer, and smarter, and help organizations innovate without fear.
When you look back at scaling organizations from the technical perspective through that technical lens, what are those non-negotiables that you needed in place in order to grow with confidence?
I always say quality is non negotiable. That is the given. But other things inherently non negotiable is also security, privacy, compliance. So these are some of the things you have to think from the beginning. You cannot just build this after building the products. So you have to build it along with the product. This is a foundation. You have to build it on, and then you build your architecture, then you build your features and go to market strategy and things like that. HIPAA aligned cloud architecture with strict segmentation, automated policy enforcement, continuous monitoring. This is something that is given for healthcare, right? It's not negotiable. You have to do this. Then compliance framework that is not static, right? Because things are changing. The policies might change, the audit mechanisms might change, the data flow reviews has to happen, the BAs have to be in place. So you have to be dynamic when new rules come out, when new issues are found. You need to be dynamic for the compliance framework and also partners who can understand healthcare, right? That's why when I selected ClearDATA, one big plus point for you was that you understand healthcare, right? There were a lot of companies who were good at privacy and security, but I also wanted partner who understand HIPAA, the BAs, how to work with hospitals, how to work with other healthcare companies, and working as a team to bring together all the vendors, all the technology to provide value to the client. And having clear data allowed us to move faster in our startup companies because I didn't have to worry much about the compliance, security, and privacy because I relied on clear data to do that. Then I could focus on real technology and product development and putting features to clients.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. We love partnering with you. Now, when you think about our partnership together, and when you think about partnerships in general, what makes a partner truly strategic versus a really helpful partner?
Understanding that, okay, the expertise, the right kind of expertise is needed to bring that. In this case, ClearData has healthcare expertise, PHI, OCR audits, incident response management, clinical operations, those kind of things ClearDATA can do. And putting the guardrails and guidelines in place. So you don't want these vendors to come in and do more than what you want. You want exactly what you want. To put in the guardrails and guidelines, and people often think compliance can slow down things. But if you really get the architecture and automation right, compliance can become an accelerator. And in this case, when I went with ClearDATA, I could really focus on accelerating my features to the client and not getting bogged down in the compliance and the privacy issues because I relied on ClearDATA to do that. Consistency during the scale, right? We are working with hospitals, right? Whether you are a company building a product or hospital itself, you're either working with hospitals, patients, data, and a lot of regulatory coming from the federal as well as state governments, enabling that, providing that environment to thrive, and policies that are consistent, monitoring that is consistent, and reliability is invaluable in healthcare. So overall, I look for expertise, speed, and operational trust in any partner I choose.
Let's shift gears a little bit now. Let's start with AI. So, when you think about AI becoming more and more embedded in healthcare, where do you think collaboration across the ecosystem actually matters most, Nias?
Yeah, so AI, people are adopting AI, which is good, right? We are on the cusp of it. But having a policy, whether it is using tools within the organization, having the right policy is important. Not being too open and providing data to the AI companies and putting that guardrails there, but also being open to innovation, right? So you need to adopt the new technologies. If you don't adopt the new technologies, you will be left behind. So when you are looking at AI in healthcare, you need to gain trust on AI. And how do you gain trust? I wrote an actually article on LinkedIn called 5 Ps. There is precision, prediction, personalization, population, and prevention. So in this journey, AI can help in any of these things, but having a physician's trust, having the healthcare organization's trust in AI is important. And then when you get into precision, into prediction, the personalization becomes more, providing that input and the answer specific to that patient, looking at other aspects, right, like genome and biomarkers and things like that. And then when it comes to population health, it is even more. You're looking at a bigger population. It could be a state population, it could be a diabetes population, it could be a cardiovascular population, and providing that in an aggregate form, that's important. And eventually, the moral goal for all of us is prevention. How can we use technology so that you don't have to go to the hospital site? You can sit at your home, do your checks, upload it to AI, and do the right thing with your lifestyle adjustments so that you can prevent diseases before it can happen.
We're talking about AI, we're talking about partnering with confidence, we're talking about scaling businesses from a technical perspective. All of this is possible by leveraging new tools and infrastructure. Where do you see healthcare organizations struggling the most as they're scaling to cloud infrastructure with security and compliance?
The struggle is there, but I think it's becoming lesser and lesser these days, I would say, because when I was with Siemens and Cerner, at that time, only 20% was in hospitals were in using cloud. And that too, at that time, it was not like the AWS or Azure, like public cloud. That was more kind of the private clouds that was built by Siemens and Cerner and things like that. And then slowly saw the shift, right? More moving from on-prem to cloud. That shift has happened. And now most of the health systems are on cloud one way or the other. They might have some on-prem. That has become much better these days because the compliance, the HIPAA compliance, the SOC 2 compliance, high trust, all those have given the confidence that the data can stay in the cloud securely without exposing any PHI anywhere and without much security risk. So that has become less of a problem. But now the main problem is fragmented data. The data is fragmented in different areas of the hospital, for example. How do you bring all this data? Mainly because hospital systems have multiple cloud vendors, multiple SaaS vendors, right? One hospital might have a Cerner and a Allscripts and several other vendors, and they may not talk to each other, even though there are interoperability standards like HL7 and Fire, FHIR Fire. Sometimes these systems don't talk to each other. Data might be siloed. So, how do you bring all the data together and make it usable for AI models to pick up, train the AI models, and provide the input? I think that is a struggle still, getting that data from different sources, and nobody has fully solved that problem.
How did you approach that tension between the need to access data fast, but putting the right guardrails in place so that this fragmentation, this decentralized nature of the data, and even data proliferation, even with AI, how do you approach that tension? Everybody wants everything quickly. You don't know
Right.
where everything is, but you're responsible to keep everything protected within those guardrails.
When you de-identify data too much, sometimes it becomes less valuable, right? So you need to keep it in the hospital system with identification because that's how they identify the patients and things like that. But when data is used for AI, you need to de-identify the data to use it more for aggregate analysis. Bringing this data into a kind of a data warehouse. So you have multiple sources. There are mechanisms like CDC and other mechanisms to bring data into the data warehouse and then having that analytics in different layers, right? Analytics, dashboards. So you can, there are multiple architectures like a Medallion architect, which I have implemented in multiple places, where you could bring this data into one place, right? De-identified, but still providing value without losing too much of value. And then you can have a data as a service, you can have analytics as a service, you can have a dashboard as a service. Then it becomes much easier for the consumers to not just access the data but provide or use the data for intelligent purposes. That will give a great outcome for the hospital, whether it is to treat the patients or to optimize the hospital operations, optimize their staff. Different aspects can be using the data.
You can't live without third parties in a healthcare setting, in a technology setting specifically. So, how do you manage that risk, and what good enough risk management looks like in that context?
Yeah, so risk management is key, right? When you are dealing with PHI data, right? And what I would say is that having the right partner for risk management is also key because the hospital system trying to manage it themselves will become a burden on them, right? Because they should be focusing on the patient care and how to use the technology to provide the best operations for the hospital. When you look at the risk management, right? So having third party for risk simplification, right? We need a clearer way for organization to validate the AI vendors or the data, the compliance and the trustworthiness. And then also human in the loop is very important there as well, right? You can automate a lot, but at the end of the day, a human in the loop is the key for healthcare because you don't want to make any decisions without a doctor's approval or a physician's approval.
To land the plane on this first episode, I'll be remiss if I didn't tap into all this knowledge that you have. So I want to ask you my last question of the day. If you were advising another healthcare CTO or another founder today, what lessons would you want them to internalize early in the process?
Obviously, start from the vision, right? What is the vision of the company? What do you want to do with the company? What is your strategy? How you are able to develop a commercially viable product with the right technology, putting together the architecture and making sure that you have the right team to execute. And one thing I'll tell you, don't try to do everything yourself. Bring the right partners, bring the right experts to do, because the experts can do it in a much efficient way, faster than trying to do everything yourself.
This has been a great conversation. I want to thank you for sharing real world perspectives with us, not just the highlights, not just the sweet stories, but also the hard parts and those areas in the room that light needs to be shed. So thank you for that. An amazing conversation. I am looking forward to the next episodes that we have ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the great questions, Nico.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.